All right, hello everyone, and welcome to today's webinar, Why Media Companies Are Adopting Google Drive for Work. We are also going to be talking a little bit about FlashPanel, and I am going to share my screen with you all quick. All right, so just to introduce everyone who is speaking today, I am Ashley Kellenhofer, and I do marketing for Cloudbakers. Our first speaker is going to be Mitch Greenwald, the founder of Cloudbakers. Then we'll pass it off to Tristan Dobbs, our Cloudbakers Cloud Deployment Specialist. And then finally, we'll hear from Mike Rothenberg, who is the Development Manager for Better Cloud. All right, so next is Mitch Greenwald.
Okay, thank you, Ashley, and thank you everyone for attending too. So I really want to talk about why Google Drive for Work and FlashPanel. I'll just take a few minutes before we get into the meat of it here, of why they're relevant for your business here. So Google Drive for Work is really a product that really solves a number of problems out there for you. It's mobile friendly, it works on all mobile platforms. It allows you to work better as teams and your projects that you have, and it also lets you do content sharing. And it lets you do it really well. So a couple of real big differentiators that are on the product, first of all, are its ability to have unlimited storage. So no more worrying about quotas, no more worrying about how many gigabytes or megabytes or how much you have left in email, documents, whatever. It's all there. It gives you a more granular control of your organization, which actually FlashPanel actually goes even deeper into. It gives you audit capabilities, and through the additional audit APIs, FlashPanel takes advantage of those to really help protect your data. And then on top of it, it gives you the ability to have e-archiving, compliance, and discovery capabilities on top of all that also. And what it really does for you with the combination of Drive for Work and FlashPanel, the same way that you have an enterprise ERP system, or that you have your accounting systems and your project management systems and your databases that protect all your structured data, this combination allows you to protect your unstructured data, whether it's documents, emails, chats, hangouts, in the same way that you're protecting all your structured data. And that's a really great thing to have all of that information protected in the same way. Some really, and then you have one platform to do it. Some really nice features about FlashPanel and how it really enhances your environment. It lets you automate some technology workflows, whether it's the onboarding process, the offboarding process, being able to do certain audit reports and do that. You could actually have an automated workflow to do that. And it's a really key feature to improve your productivity of your team and your staff there. It also leverages that audit API that I said to be able to give you some really good audit reports on usage and on documents and things shared, all of those types of pieces that are out there that you really need to stay compliant and you really need to manage an enterprise technology environment for your business. And the third piece that I really like to say is that it provides a way to monitor your environment and actively monitor your environment, so you can see if there's any discrepancies or any risk of intellectual property or IP that's out there, or the number of documents that have been shared out there, the number of emails that have been forwarded out there, the number of hangouts that are being done, the number of chats. So you can not only see, actively monitor your environment, you can see what pieces of your environment are being used and where you could actually use more of the environment to keep going forward. So I'll just, as I said, talk for a little bit of time. The rest is really going down into the nuts and bolts of this. And I'd like to introduce Tristan Dobbs here, who's a cloud deployment specialist with Cloudbakers. But in his former life, he was an IT admin for a media company and helped them implement Google and FlashPanel, Google Apps and FlashPanel, and has some really inside tips as far as a hands-on administrator. Off to you, Tristan. Thank you.
Thanks, Mitch. Yeah, like Mitch said, my name is Tristan Dobbs. I am a cloud deployment specialist here at Cloudbakers, but he's right. In my former life, I was an IT admin and the primary Google Apps administrator at a big movie theater company here in Illinois. So I have a little bit of experience, or a lot of experience, on both sides of that coin, which is really kind of what I'm going to talk about today. You know, why do we use Google Drive for work, especially in a media company, and what benefits do FlashPanel provide on top of that? You know, and that for that combination. So just for a little bit of background, the company that I used to work for has locations all over the state. You know, from the very tip top to the very, you know, way down at the bottom. So there's a big spread. There are a lot of different locations, and there's about just over 100 users that they have to manage, anywhere from construction personnel to graphic designers to theater personnel to the film bookers. So they're people that basically handle every aspect of running a movie theater company and showing people movies. You know, every person in that process is kind of represented in the company. So I'm going to share my screen here. So if you can see my screen here, I'm going to go over kind of some of the Google Drive for Work specific things in terms of the media industry. So one of the biggest reasons that this movie theater company decided to go Google was for the collaborative aspect of the whole system. So being such a huge media-centric business, it's really important to be able to work with people no matter where they are, what devices they use, what software they use, or even what language they speak. So there's a big benefit to something like Google Hangouts, where you can work within Google Drive and see each other when you talk. It's kind of invaluable to be able to see someone's face, you know, when they respond or how they react to, you know, a certain movie poster, a certain advertisement that you're thinking about putting out in your theater. You're not sure if that really is going to resonate with people. It's good to be able to just see how they react to things in a face-to-face environment, even if you're, you know, worlds apart. So Google Drive, is one of the big kind of centerpieces to the Google Apps experience for a media company, partially because of the document storage, but also a lot for the sharing. So that's one of those tools that, when you get it, it's a tool that you never really realized that you needed until you couldn't live without it. And the other reason is, as a consolidated, you could use Google Drive to consolidate a lot of the services that you use outside of Google. You know, rather than use other sites, something like, you know, SurveyMonkey to handle surveys, you could bring everything kind of into Drive and use that instead of just kind of distributing all of those different logins and different, websites. So we much preferred working within the Google environment to having a bunch of different, services set up. So like I mentioned, working from anywhere is big within the industry. We had people traveling all over the state to different locations. Like I said, I mean, we had them way up north in Illinois, close to Wisconsin, way down south. Places that people recognize, that you would put a big theater in. Anywhere that you can think there is one, there probably is one of these theaters. So when you have people traveling to different locations and traveling to tons of events, those people need access to the same company information. You need to be able to give, the vendors that you're talking to, the newspapers that you may be giving reviews to, you need to give them up-to-date information. And to do that, you need to have access to the same company information that everybody has access to at the home office. The company has construction personnel, so they need to know when films open, when there's special shows showing, and they may be at a location and they need to know, what's the schedule for today in terms of, when are people coming in, when do I need to finish working on a project. And then you have people who might be all the way out in LA who are talking to film companies that they need to access those spreadsheets where we keep all the information. And that may be fine in a normal environment where you could maybe send them an email with a copy of the spreadsheet. But in an industry where things change so fast, the ability for somebody to edit something back at the home office and for that person out in LA maybe meeting a film booker to talk about a schedule, them seeing that information right away is kind of a big deal. So when you work on kind of negotiating how long a film is going to play and how many theaters it's going to play, you need to kind of have that information without having to really talk to people. You want to just have access to that right away. So with Hangouts, like I said, being able to see people's reaction is kind of key to some of these visuals. A lot of film companies send a lot of their advanced artwork out as soon as they can because they're trying to use the film companies, the movie, the people who show the movies to their audience. They like to get their reactions to things because they know their audience better. If I know that I have a theater in a mall, and a lot of the clientele is teenagers, us being able to get that artwork in advance and say, we're going to put this in the mall, but you know what? It just doesn't. It's not going to resonate with those people that go to see those shows and send it back. Being able to jump on a Hangout so that they can see, this is kind of my disappointment with this this movie poster, or I really don't think this marketing campaign is going to work out. Them being able to see that is really important, so that they kind of understand, face to face, the kind of the issue, where it sits. It's sometimes hard to communicate just via text, and because Hangouts is built into Google Apps, it's a feature that you can't really pass up when you're working with all that artwork. So when you're working with film bookers and distributors, like I said, you talk over a lot of Google spreadsheets, you go over a lot of schedules, and you go over a lot of negotiations. And because things are very strict in terms of when you negotiate film contracts and like the longevity of how long a film is going to stay first run and second run, because all that's kind of strict and very rigid, when you meet with these people, you need to be able to show them the information that you have, and they can work on it with you in order to come to terms with a much better, much clearer deal, a better deal that'll work for everyone. So there's a whole lot that collaboration has to play in. It has to do with people even outside of the company and not just people within the company. So the ability to work with any file type is another thing that comes into play with Google Drive. All of those different companies that you deal with, whether it's a vendor talking about distributing distributing marketing for some of the food products that they put in our theaters, whether it's a film booker talking about how many theaters you're going to play a film in, or whether it's the film company talking about what markets they want to play in, what theaters they want to show their film in, and for how long. Everybody's kind of using a system that they feel comfortable with, but it might be different. It might not be Google Apps. So Google Apps does a great job. Google Drive does a great job at being agnostic, and working with other file types. If somebody sends me, a Word document, and we are a completely Google Apps company, we're using Google Drive, and we're ahead of the pack. We can still open that up, edit it, send it back to them, share it with them, look it over. We can jump into a Hangout and talk to them, face to face, and show them, what we think of the document that they shared with us. So it's really great to be able to just open that up without having to switch to a different system or open up, one of those legacy, document editors like Microsoft Docs or something like that, or Microsoft Word. The other big thing to Drive is the unlimited storage aspect. I mentioned that a lot of these film companies will send like advanced artwork and marketing campaigns. They may send videos that they can't, for certain reasons, post online and give you a link to, because it might become public. So what they'll do is they'll send something to you on a hard drive, or they'll send something to you with Google Drive, and you're expected to kind of keep that to yourself. Well, with Google Drive, you can store everything in your company's cloud and give everyone who needs to access to it, but nobody's going to share it out. You can store as much of this stuff as you want to and be able to give it to everybody else who needs access to it, because believe me, they will need access to it right away. But nobody's going to stop you. There's no wall that you're going to hit and say, you've run out of space. You can't put any more videos up, or you may have a very detailed film poster that they're sharing out to show to theater managers or the marketing coordinators, and they may say, take a look at this, let us know if it's okay or if there need to be revisions. And if they do, they may have to send out another copy, and they can be very large files that just don't fit into an email. So being able to store everything, and give one centralized location for people to access, all these materials and all this artwork is a huge deal. You can store up to a file up to a terabyte in size, which I have never personally seen, but I guarantee you the movie industry gets very close to that. They can be very, very high resolution images, that you just need to be able to pull up without having to, send it in an email or put it on a flash drive and walk it over to somebody's desk or drive it down, down the state. Another thing that comes along with sharing out movie posters is brand consistency. The film industry is known for being extremely strict when it comes to their brand. So when they share out a marketing plan or when they share out a poster that they expect you to then go forth and put forward into into your theaters and show to customers, they want to make sure that you're giving the most recent version, the proper version, making sure that everything that you share with your customers is something they intended to make out to these customers' eyeballs. And a big part of doing that is keeping it one version of the marketing plan, say, okay? With something like Microsoft Word, they're going to send you out a document, and it'll be easy to read it over. But if they send you out another version with the same name, you're going to wonder, which version is the correct version. Maybe you have to look at which one is more recent, and kind of get into to seeing, what are the differences between these files and which one am I actually going to use. With Google Docs, all you have to do is keep one version of a file, and the file that you pull up is the latest version. It's the most recent version. It's exactly what they want you to show. You can still get to the older versions by seeing something like a revision history, but you shouldn't be worried then that you're sharing out something that maybe isn't ready for public consumption, because they've already given you what you're pulling up is what they have already approved as being ready for public consumption. So you know that you're going to put out something that they intend for you to put out. They're going to be happy with what you put out because you already know that my version of the file is the right version. Bundled into Google Drive is maybe a little less known feature, but a great feature, called Google Forms. So I mentioned before that we use something like SurveyMonkey to kind of send out these, manager feedback forms or something like that. What we would do is say, we'd send out a form or a survey and say, what was the public reaction coming out of the first showing of that film? Maybe we did a midnight release. How did that go? What did people say? And we want to know how people are reacting to a film, how people are reacting to like the marketing, the posters that we put out there, and how people are reacting to the general, overall feel of this midnight event or something like that. We used to use SurveyMonkey, but that was a different login. You couldn't really tie that information. You'd have to export that information and then drag it into whatever you were using. With Google Forms, you can create a form in 5 seconds. You can use templates and push out forms, day after day. People can respond to those forms, and their information is already stored in Drive for you to just take action on right away. You can share out that information to anybody who needs it. So, for instance, if you have a marketing coordinator who needs to know, the night after the midnight release, how did this go? What are people saying about this film? We want to respond on social media to the actual, the reactions that customers have had. So we'll send out a Google form to somebody to say the theater manager who's seen all these people come out of the film. He or she will log in and give kind of their general synopsis of how things went, and then the marketing coordinator is already given that information. So he's already fully supplied, with everything that he needs to create a new campaign or a social media campaign that allows him to go out and kind of, start a conversation rather than just, putting out information. He can put out things that are specific to what people have already said. So Google Forms is huge in order to handle that. The other thing we do is complaint forms. So using a Google form, storing information onto a Google Sheet gives us the perfect way to create a central location for any complaints that people have about, like I said, the movies or the theater experience. And when you have one central location, you might have operations, the operations division might have access to that sheet. You might have theater managers who have access to that sheet, and you may even need to share it out to, theater employees, the ushers or the people behind the concession counter. If they have a Gmail account, you can share it out to them, and they can see, oh, these are the issues that people had. We can all work on it together, rather than trying to, create some sort of site or worst case scenario, print things off and hang it up in the break room. I mean, nobody does that anymore, So Google Forms is a great way to collect all that information into one area. The other thing I wanted to mention was Google Sites, and I used to use this all the time as an admin, especially the movie company, because when you create a Google site, one of the bigger reasons that we moved over to Google too, in addition to Drive, was be able to create some sort of company intranet, right? You want to create a Google site so that you can store all of your information. You can create sort of one portal for people to be able to pull in and see what's new within the company. It improves people's general happiness within the company, that feeling like they're part of a community rather than just different people who work for the company. So everybody knows that intranets are very important, but what's even more important is the kind of cost of the intranet, right? You could spend, an exorbitant amount of money building this custom site that houses information, and then building a portal to be able to create that information and upload it to the site. And with Google Sites, all you have to do is use Google's own tool. It's a what you see is what you get, a WYSIWYG editor. It's very simple. You can have multiple editors, so you can have, the managers of the theaters can create pages to give information to their employees. You can have operations create pages to give information to the managers to pass on. So you're creating basically one large portal as a central kind of knowledge base for people to access. One thing I wanted to bring up is, back in 2001, right before the first Spider-Man film released, there was, they start putting out these posters, and it was just a poster of Spider-Man and his mask, kind of clung to the side of a building, and it had, in the reflection of one of his eyeballs, it had an image of the Twin Towers. So you see it here on the left. That was put out, before, say, September 11, 2001, and so after that national tragedy, Columbia Pictures reached out to all of the film companies and said, listen, there is an image of the Twin Towers on his eyeball, it's pretty prominent, in the poster. We need to get rid of that immediately. So they kind of reached out to film companies who, at this point had already shared those posters out to their movie theaters. We had put it in poster cases, and people were walking by it every day, so it needed to be taken care of right away, especially after such a huge event, such a huge national tragedy. So what they did was, at the time, they had to send people around to go to each of those locations, walk through the theater, make sure that poster didn't show up anywhere. They had to talk to the theater managers and make sure that all the posters that they had pulled down and stored were actually destroyed, because they sent out a destroy order on that. So there was a whole lot of logistics and infrastructure that were involved in just making sure that one poster was removed so they could send out a new poster, the one on the right. So one of the things that we used to do, and believe me, it didn't just happen once. This happens constantly. So one of the tough things about getting that information out is that it's tough to get everyone on board when something's supposed to be kind of hush-hush, or something's supposed to be kind of a secret. You don't necessarily want the public to know that you're scrambling to get a poster removed from your theaters. Having a Google site built so that when people, you can push out a news story that says, listen, everybody go into your theaters and make sure that this poster doesn't exist. Take it out back and burn it. Whatever you have to do, you have to get rid of that poster. Everybody knows immediately. I mean, it's a broadcast, right? Everybody knows there's one location that everyone can go to, and they can find out why this happened, what the time frame is, what are the requirements, without having to send out 1,000 emails just to make sure it gets done, and then send people to follow up with. So you just post a news story, you give the explanation, you give kind of a to-do list, and you say this is what needs to get done and fast, and then people then can comment on that page and say, yes, we've done it, we've done it too, we're missing a poster, so you can kind of take care of compliance on that issue at the same time. So that's kind of one of the reasons why a company intranet was one of the big benefits, one of the big reasons to sign up with Google. And then a couple of the last things I wanted to talk about were Vault and e-discovery, and this is purely from an IT admin's perspective. This is a big deal. Okay, so Vault and e-discovery kind of allows you to make sure that there's one area where you're able to get to documents. You can make sure that you've got like legal compliance systems in place. You make sure that everything's being retained in the event that you need to pull it up later. So if you've got employees, they have information about a movie poster, and they've got, maybe they have the one document was shared to them and they didn't really share it with anyone else or make any copies, and then they delete it. Using e-discovery, it's kind of easy to see, like, well, who was that who's that document sent, or to who was it sent, or who handled those emails and who stored what where. Using e-discovery, it's easy to just kind of very quickly bring up the information that you need, so you can find all images of that movie poster or all versions of that that 5-second teaser trailer. And so within the media industry, especially within the movie industry, it's kind of a fragile place to work, legally speaking, because legal disputes can be a common occurrence, which is why Vault is very, very important for record keeping and compliance. Because certain film companies will impose like super strict rules on the showing of their films, especially pre-screening. So if they release, if I tomorrow said, okay, this one theater in Illinois is going to do a pre-screening for industry people of The Hobbit, obviously there's going to be a lot of legal red tape around that. Obviously, if something goes wrong and one of those industry people films it, they're going to need to track down who did what and where, what were the communications on that particular film screening, and things can escalate pretty fast. And using Vault, it's easy to just say, these are all of our communications regarding that film screening. This is how we handled the situation in the event that there is some sort of legal dispute or anything like that. So what happens to all that information when a company leaves? It's easy, if you have employee turnover, it's easy to just go into Vault and see that we still have all that information. Somebody left, they're no longer an active user, but I can still go in and see, okay, these were their last communications before they left. Here are the projects they were working on. Here's the art that they had in their drive, and we can move that document. Say they owned a full folder of new Spider-Man folders, of new Spider-Man posters. We can move those just into their manager's drive, so that they're now the owner of that. We can safely remove, Jim, the former employee, from the system, and not worry about losing any documents. And then on top of all that, there's an excellent user-specific set of admin controls within Google Drive for Work that really helps when it comes to managing by exception rather than trying to manage everything at once, right? So when we talk managing by exception, we say, I really want to only take action on a specific issue or take action on a specific user if there's something that I need to worry about. Otherwise, I'd rather let them handle things themselves. I trust all my users. So the big thing a big benefit to doing that is being able to see just at a glance what's going on, how many people are using their Drive storage and how much, and how many people are using more for email than they are for Drive. I can just see all that right away. I can manage users and see what they're sharing, when they're sharing, and just go over each specific user at a per user basis. So I can pull up Jim, the ex-employee, and see what exactly was going on in his account before he left. On top of that, you have mobile device management. So part of working anywhere, everywhere, in every language, on every device, part of that involves mobile devices. You can use your laptop, but you can use your tablet. You can also use your phone. I mean, you can sign into Google from anywhere. So what happens when somebody loses their phone? It can be kind of scary because they have access to all that information until you realize, wait, we have mobile device management. We can go through and we can wipe the account from that phone. So somebody picks up their phone at a cafe in LA after they've left, we just wipe that account so they can't access any of the information. Even worse, or even better, worst case scenario, somebody picks up that phone and they're able to get into the information there, you can wipe that whole device. So that device, the next time that person picks it up, it just completely wipes itself clean and it's a blank device. It's really great for Android and iOS, both. You have all those capabilities, with all those smartphones out there. And then last is sharing permissions. So you're able to see kind of like what users are sharing what and who's sharing externally and what are the, if you have a movie poster that absolutely cannot get out to the public, seeing those sharing permissions is kind of key to keeping that movie poster under wraps until the day that they announce, Spider-Man 12. So you can find, the document sharing settings, which is great for content compliance. One of the things I wanted to mention before Mike talks is, in terms of FlashPanel, one of my favorite features is the FlashPanel contact sharing service. Within the media industry, you might have thousands of people that you need to keep in contact with, and they all may have information that changes from time to time. There are a lot of people that kind of move between industry companies. There might be marketing executives who move from Paramount Pictures to Columbia. There might be people who work for Sony that now work for NBC, and them all working, kind of like moving around and changing their contact information, but still being the same people, really means that everybody has to have access to the same information regarding, where is Jim now? Did he move on to this company or that company? And the easiest way to do that is using FlashPanel. Like, I can't rage enough about the feature. Just being able to keep a central repository for contacts and share them out to everybody who needs them. And you can share subsets of people out. So maybe my theater manager doesn't need to have the contact information for the CEO of Sony, but they do need to have contact information for the film booker so they can discuss this pre-screening coming up. So we were able to just kind of share out, okay, these are all the film bookers we have, and everybody, who's a theater manager can get those, but the CEOs, they only need to talk to our operations managers and the president of our company. I mean, the biggest, that's the feature that made people, I think, the most happy when it came to FlashPanel, was that really, really powerful contact sharing feature that you just don't get, unless you use FlashPanel. So I'll let Mike talk now. Sorry for taking over a little bit of your time, but I had to say something.
No, thanks a lot. I appreciate the introduction, and let me just make sure. Okay, so yeah, no, that's definitely very true. And shared contacts and some of the other directory tools are kind of where we had our roots, and where we started as a as a company. But a lot of the focus has been on security tools and a lot of other things moving forward, and really come a long way since then. Let me just share my screen with you and open up this deck, and we could talk about that in a little bit more detail. But yeah, so FlashPanel does add a lot of value to Google Apps, and especially Drive for Work. I think they're paired very nicely together. And just want to thank Ashley, Mitch, and Tristan for having me on today to present, and really the whole Cloudbakers team. And just really appreciative that you're letting me talk a little bit about FlashPanel. As Tristan and Ashley mentioned, I'm a development manager here at Better Cloud. I'm going to talk to you a little bit about FlashPanel. I'll talk a little bit about that contacts tool that Tristan was mentioning. I'll try to give you the high-level overview, how it fits in with Drive for Work, how it really just enhances the Google experience. FlashPanel is a really, we like to think of it as a comprehensive tool. So when you think FlashPanel, you could think of a single pane of glass for the Google Apps admin. This is built on top of the admin console. Maybe there's some inherent limitations, but Google has done a really great job, and they've done a better job than any other platform out there about opening up APIs, great documentation on their APIs, and allowing companies like BetterCloud to come in and build on top of Google Apps. And that's what FlashPanel really is. And you'll hear me say it a couple of times, but when you think FlashPanel, think of this comprehensive security and management platform for Google Apps built on top of the admin console. As far as where we're built, we live 100% within Google's cloud, and I'll talk a little bit more about our Google focus in a second. So when we're talking about Google's cloud, we deliver FlashPanel as a service to you through Google App Engine and Compute Engine, making this big push onto Compute Engine just for speed, and leveraging all the different virtual machines. We are a Google Premier Technology partner as well. Not only do we have great relationships with companies like Cloudbakers, but we also have a fairly good relationship with Google as well, and do some bug testing for them and testing on new APIs. Google is 100% of our focus. Our only product, FlashPanel, is built 100% for the Google Apps ecosystem, so that's all that we do. So our developers, we have 40 full-time developers working on FlashPanel, and all they do is mess around and try to break the Google APIs. And if you talk to some Googlers, they'd probably laugh at that, but we are, the kings of hitting any quota in Google, any API quota. We're kind of the first ones to hit it. And FlashPanel is not only for the IT admin. One of the really valuable things is it's for someone in marketing if they want to deliver an email signature, if you have a help desk employee that wants to push out email delegations, if you have a department head who wants to get a certain reporting tool going, if you want, the CISO, there's really something for everyone in FlashPanel with custom access roles. You don't need to be a Google Apps super admin to use the tool. You don't need to have any kind of API access. In Google, there's 4 groupings of API access that you could have. And it's really this single pane of glass, this unified suite of tools that really help you better control your domain. It's going to give you this 360-degree view of your domain, whether that's a full visibility into user activity, what third-party apps they're installing, giving you administrative control over user accounts, group accounts, managing shared contacts, or giving you different security policies to really lock down Drive and ensure you're not sharing any sensitive information out to competitors or publicly. So there's really a pretty wide set of tools here within the product. So this really will help enable you to fully leverage Google Apps. So a lot of the reason we go Google is to leverage sharing and collaboration. There's so much value in being able to communicate and collaborate on docs all across the world in real time. But you want to be able to say to your security teams, to your governance teams, that we can confidently do this, and we have the controls in place to ensure that there's no exposure, no additional risk out there. And FlashPanel helps add that extra layer of security. Just a one-sheeter on FlashPanel. I already talked a little bit about being built on Google App Engine and Compute Engine. We're really using every single API that Google has opened up to deliver you those tools across the top that you see. So whether it's something like Drive security or directory management, some advanced reporting, there's just so many different things that FlashPanel touches on. And I'll have a little bit of time to go through a live demo, and unfortunately I'll only be able to show you a couple of the tools, probably show you 3 core tools, but there's over 100 different features in FlashPanel, so there's a lot of value for any organization, any use case, from administration all the way to security. When we talk about security, there's a couple of core groups that I like to think about. Reporting is a big one. Like I said, with Drive for Work, you have those new APIs, those new audit APIs. We're also pulling information from all the other APIs to give you this custom reporting engine where you can find a report that you really like, tweak it a little bit, and schedule it to go out to an intended audience. So if you want to track last logins, or you have someone in the security or compliance team that wants to see all the users that are forwarding their emails to a personal account, and you want to schedule that to run every Wednesday at 12 o'clock and have it sent to that Google group, you can do that. Sharing policies, these are big for Drive, and this is one of the tools I'll go into a little bit more detail, but we can have nice, compliance-based policies on regex or keywords and different content, and I'll go into that in a little bit more detail. Also, third-party apps. This is a big one too, and I'll go through this in the demo as well. You want to see every third-party app that a user is granting OAuth permissions to, and to set some sort of automated policy. You'll be able to do that in the product, and we have different password policies and things like that. Going back to our roots, where FlashPanel started as an administration, a user and directory management tool. Shared contacts is so huge for us. As Tristan mentioned, it's a really great way to get different, not only directory contacts, but Google shared contacts out to different users in the organization, and syncs with mobile devices and all that good stuff as well. We also launched a month and a half ago, and this is pretty consistent since we came into the Google Apps Marketplace. We've released a new major feature every month. It just kind of speaks to the rapid rate of development that we have over here at BetterCloud. What you see in front of you now is our new Domain Health Check and Insight Center. So this is the new homepage in FlashPanel. The goal here is really to surface as much relevant information as possible to you on the homepage when you log in, and to allow you to customize this. When you have a tool with 100 different features, not every user is going to be interacting with the product the same way. So you might be concerned about Drive docs and third-party apps, where another admin who logs in is going to be concerned about shared contacts and some of the other directory tools. So you'll be able to customize this page and really highlight what's relevant for you, and where's the risk, what do we want to kind of highlight when we first log in every single day. The alerts are going to be color-coded. Red alerts, high risk, immediate attention, policy violations, things of that nature. Yellow alerts, best practices. You might have a group in your domain with, you might have 10 groups in your domain that any user could join. That might be something that, as an admin, you want to look into and see if you're comfortable with those group settings, and then adjust, as you see fit. And then the green alerts, just actions that FlashPanel has taken, whether you had a sync on your domain, and other links to best practices. So that's the new homepage. A really great tool, and just surfaces a lot of really great information when you first log into the product. So now I will switch over to one of my demo accounts and quickly run through a few of the tools that I mentioned before. So a big initiative at BetterCloud has been security. And I talked a little bit about Compute Engine. Google's opened up some really great Drive APIs, not only with Drive for Work, but also just allowing us to, to get information, to pull information faster and to take action faster. So with Drive compliance, you're spending a lot of time and money getting great adoption across Drive in the organization. You have unlimited storage. Users are storing terabytes of data, hopefully, but you want to control this. You want some enhanced security. That's where FlashPanel comes in. So we're going to create policies now. In the case of the movie studio, like Tristan was talking, or the movie company, or any kind of media company, you might have different OUs that you are comfortable with different levels of sharing. And you're going to turn on and off those services in Drive for Work, and that's really one of the benefits of Drive for Work. But maybe we want to create some compliance policies on top of that sit on top of those advanced controls that Google's now offering you. And you can do that by creating a compliance policy. The scoping works like this. You can either push out one blanket policy to everyone, to a subdomain, to an OU or an individual user. Whenever we push out a policy, we have the option of adding in an exception. So maybe there's the CEO of the company, he's an exception to every single policy you run. I'm sure they would be happy with that. And then you come into the conditions. So maybe we're comfortable with marketing, sharing documents publicly. They're sharing movie posters publicly. They're sharing all this content publicly because they're a marketing team. They need to do that. But we don't want people in our finance OU sharing budget docs publicly, or all this financial information. So we're going to create a policy for an OU. Let's do it based on sharing settings. So I want to restrict all public sharing for this OU. But more importantly, I want to drill down and get into specific content. Maybe I want to restrict sharing with a certain competitor and blacklist certain domains. Or maybe I want to do it based on keyword searches and pull up any kind of regex or keyword violation this way, and put in keywords and search for things like budget and credit card data and PII and PCI data. So we can create a really nice policy that's going to flag any item with some potential risk. If we're looking for social security numbers, I can also come in here and do it based on our own regex syntax, as well as payment information, credit cards, things like that. So you can really create a pretty robust policy that's going to flag any items in Drive where there's some perceived risk of exposure. You can run this purely in an audit mode. So once you get up and running, you're doing some testing, you're going to run this policy in an audit mode, see what's flagged as a violation, or you could switch it over to policy mode and then flag a document as a violation, change the sharing settings, change the owner, send messages to the end user. There's all these different actions you could take. Excuse me. You could scan all files in your domain from this point forward or since a certain date. So this really adds that additional layer of compliance where you can go to your governance teams, your compliance teams, and say, hey, this is what we're searching for. We're searching for all these file types for this type of content, and we're flagging it, we're taking this action, and we're educating our users, because that's what it comes down to a lot of times. We want to better educate our users how to leverage the entire suite. And we hope that FlashPanel helps you to do that, or we know that FlashPanel helps you to do that. Maybe it's not a violation notice that you're sending to the end user. You're sending them a best practices guide to sharing. So there's lots of different ways you can tweak these policies. You don't have to run them necessarily the strictest way, or if you have very heavy compliance requirements, you can tweak the policy. The next tool I want to talk to you a little bit about is Apps Explorer. So this is really interesting. I think it was last week actually Google released that end users could now install apps from the Google Apps Marketplace, where previously an end user can install things from the Chrome Web Store. They can, but in reality, an end user can use their Google credentials to authenticate to an app in a lot of different ways, whether it's on a mobile device, clicking that red sign in with Google button. These are all areas where there's some potential risk. We want to see what are those specific permissions. What are those specific permissions? When that notification pops up and the user's looking at a list of permissions, read, write, drive, read, write, email, and they click accept, they're not a lot of times thinking about all those bridges that they're leaving open to your company's data. So we want a centralized tool where we can look at this and manage it. We'll come in here and we will look at all of our apps. So the app name, it's my gut feeling and my general opinion that the app name really doesn't tell you the whole story. That an application that's designed to harmfully get or get access to your company's data is not going to have a shady name all the time. So what we really want to identify is the permission score. What we want to take a look at is the permission score, and that's a ranking of how risky an app is based on a number of different components. One being all the specific permissions that a user clicked accept to. That tells part of the story. The second piece is full domain access. So if an admin installs an app, that's going to be inherently riskier just because of the level of access to your company's data and the number of installs. We can whitelist, blacklist, or notify users all from this grid view. But the longer you're on Google, the more applications you're going to have in your domain, and the harder it's going to be to cut through all that noise. You're going to have a list of thousands of apps. You just want to identify the risky apps. So you're going to come in here and you're going to create a policy. So when we create a policy, we're going to say, just like we did with Drive, is this one blanket policy? Is it a subdomain? Is it for a subdomain, an OU, or an individual user? Let's cut through all that noise. Just highlight the risky apps. Say if any or all of the below conditions are true, let's take a certain action. Those conditions being the sensitive permissions like read, write, drive, and read, write, email, and those sorts of things. Once we select our permissions, our content, we can say, what action we want to take. Let's blacklist these apps. Let's leave them as unresolved, and we can manually go in and audit them after. So it helps cut through a lot of that noise. And these are just a couple of the security tools offered within FlashPanel. 2 out of probably 100 of the different features. And just to gloss over some of the other things, our roots in the directory tools, if you want an easier way to onboard and deprovision users groups management, both on individual groups and in bulk, the shared contacts. There's a lot of really good stuff for different teams in the organization, help you save time, streamline processes, and better secure your domain. And that's the goal and why we built this product at the end of the day. I could turn it back over to Ashley now if there's any questions.
All right, thank you so much, Mike. All right, so there is a question panel on the right-hand side of your screen. Feel free to ask any questions. We don't have any right now, but you know, if you have any questions in the future, as you're kind of like sitting back and kind of taking in all this information, feel free to visit the Cloudbakers website, cloudbakers.com. Or you know, feel free to even comment on this event page for this video. You can also come back and rewatch any of the parts of this video on the Cloudbakers YouTube page. So thank you, Mitch, Tristan, and Mike for joining us today. Thank you to everyone who came to watch this presentation, and hopefully we'll talk to you soon. Bye.